Those who have a why to live can bear with almost any how. Viktor Frankl. There comes a moment when even trying feels pointless. You've failed too many times, hoped too many times, tried to change, to heal, to grow, and nothing stuck. So you stop reaching, you stop moving, you stop believing that effort will lead anywhere. It's not depression in its loudest form, it's something quieter, a slow resignation, a quiet surrender to nothingness. You're not giving up in anger. You're just tired of believing in things that keep collapsing. And the scariest part is, no one really sees it. Viktor Frankl understood this spiritual fatigue. He knew that when the will breaks, the body soon follows. But he believed that even in the deepest despair, meaning can still be found. Not in success, but in response. Marcus Aurelius also knew this moment, when effort feels futile. His answer wasn't emotional, it was deliberate. Act anyway. Do what is right. The result doesn't define you. Your discipline does. Two ancient voices. One reignites your reason to try. The other teaches you to try without needing a reward. When life feels empty, their words can pull you back from the edge. There's a kind of pain that doesn't scream. It doesn't come with panic or drama. It arrives quietly, the slow realization that you no longer have the energy to hope. You've tried before. You've given your best. You've fought hard. And things didn't change. Now the thought of trying again feels not just exhausting, it feels foolish. Why risk disappointment again? Why start if it's going to end the same way? So you do nothing. Not out of laziness, but out of emotional fatigue. You go through the motions. Wake up, go to work, talk when needed. But inside, there's no fire. You've stopped setting goals, stopped dreaming, stopped believing your effort matters. This is where giving up begins. Not in dramatic gestures, but in tiny daily surrenders. You don't collapse. You fade. You smile less, think less, feel less. Not because you want to, but because it's your way of surviving without trying. Viktor Frankl saw this quiet collapse in his patients and in the camps. He understood that the greatest danger wasn't external suffering, but internal resignation. When a person no longer sees a future, they disconnect from the present. He wrote, "Life is never made unbearable by circumstances, but only by lack of meaning and purpose." For Frankl, the loss of will is not a failure. It's a cry for meaning, not comfort, not motivation. Meaning. Marcus Aurelius confronted this same collapse, not emotionally but philosophically. He didn't ask if something was worth trying based on outcome. He asked if it was right. For Marcus, the will to try doesn't depend on how things turn out. It depends on who you choose to be. "Do what you must," he wrote. "Even if no one notices, even if nothing changes." The Stoic path isn't fueled by optimism, it's fueled by duty. You try, not because it will succeed, but because it's aligned with your values. This is where the two men offer different medicines. Frankl would ask, "What purpose could redeem your suffering?" Marcus would ask, "What principle do you refuse to abandon even now?" Both are asking you to reach, not for results, but for truth. One wants you to find something worth living for. The other wants you to live rightly, no matter what. But both agree, your soul is not dead. It's just forgotten its direction. So if you've lost the will to try, stop asking whether your effort will work. Start asking what kind of person you become by trying. Because sometimes trying isn't about the result, it's about not letting the darkness change who you are. The most painful part of losing the will to try isn't laziness, it's disconnection. You look at your past efforts and see no reward, no change, no recognition. The mind begins to say, "What's the point?" And once that question takes hold, effort starts to feel foolish. Hope becomes heavy. You begin to believe that maybe life isn't meant to improve. Maybe you're just here to endure. The result? A life in pause. You're not giving up. You're just quietly slipping out of the story. Viktor Frankl knew this moment well. He believed that when effort loses connection to meaning, despair creeps in. Not because people are weak, but because humans are wired for purpose. Strip away the why, and even the strongest break. He wrote that the will to meaning is the deepest drive in human nature. You can live without comfort. You can live without success. But you cannot live without purpose, not truly. And when that bridge between effort and purpose collapses, the soul dims. His answer wasn't to push harder. It was to pause and reassign meaning to your suffering. Marcus Aurelius took another route. He didn't promise meaning would always be clear. He knew there would be seasons when the world offers no affirmation, no encouragement, no reward. In those times, the Stoic returns to virtue. If it is not right, do not do it. If it is right, do not avoid it. To Marcus, action is its own reward. You don't need hope, you need alignment. Do the thing, because it is just, because it is true, because it reflects the person you refuse to stop being. That mindset is hard when your soul is tired. But Marcus believed that tiredness isn't the end. It's the moment you simplify. Let go of fantasies, let go of timelines, focus on the next breath, the next choice. That is Stoic healing, not emotional relief but clarity. And sometimes that's enough to get up, enough to move, enough to try again, not with fire, but with steadiness. Frankl's model is different. He wants you to fall in love. Again, mean with life, with a cause, with a person, with something that pulls you forward even when everything else says stop. He doesn't deny the pain, he uses it. The question isn't, can you try? The question is, what makes trying sacred? Again, what awakens you from numbness into meaning? So when you feel like trying is a waste, don't push. Reflect. Ask the questions both men would. What is this pain asking of me? Frankl. What is the right next action, even without motivation? Marcus. Between those two questions, you'll begin to find your way back. Sometimes you don't stop trying because you're lazy. You stop because you're afraid. You've tried before, and it didn't work. The relationship ended. The goal fell apart. You got hurt. And now every new effort feels like walking into a trap. What if it ends the same way? What if it hurts more this time? That's how fear becomes a wall between you and your next step. Not fear of the unknown, but fear of the familiar pain. You know all too well. Viktor Frankl faced this fear by reframing the question. He didn't ask, will this work? He asked, is it worth it anyway? In the camps, men faced starvation, disease, and death. And yet some still found the will to speak kindly, to protect others, to remember beauty. Not because it would succeed, but because it was human. Frankl believed that trying again wasn't about outcome. It was about identity. When you act from meaning, the act itself becomes victory, regardless of how it ends. The deeper question isn't what if I fail again, it's who do I become when I try anyway? Marcus Aurelius dismantled the fear of failure with brutal clarity. He reminded himself daily that outcomes are not in our hands. You have power over your mind, not outside events. That single line is the core of Stoic resilience. You cannot control success, but you can control effort. Dignity, to Marcus, comes from aligning your actions with virtue, not from what those actions produce. You can fail and still be at peace, if your actions were right. But what if you no longer trust your own effort? What if you're afraid that your next try will break you even more? That's where both Frankl and Marcus lean in with compassion. Frankl would ask, is there someone or something that still deserves your strength? Even a child, even a stranger, even a dream not yet born. Marcus would say, let go of the outcome, reduce the moment to what is essential. One says, try for meaning. The other, try for clarity, and that's the medicine. Trying again doesn't have to mean throwing yourself back into chaos. It can be one small act, one small breath, one refusal to give in to despair. You don't need to rebuild everything overnight. You need to begin with intention, with truth, and with your own soul at the center. So ask yourself now, if I weren't afraid to fail, what would I try today? And then ask the deeper question, even if I fail, will trying make me more myself? If the answer is yes, then it's already worth it. When you've lost the will to try, motivation becomes a myth. No quote, no video, no pep talk feels strong enough to move you. The energy just isn't there. And when others say, just try again, it sounds insulting. If it were that simple, you would have done it already. What people don't understand is that when you lose the will, you don't just lack energy, you lose direction. the soul becomes still, not in peace, in paralysis. Viktor Frankl never asked people to force effort. He invited them to redirect it. He knew that trying without meaning leads to collapse, but trying with meaning, even if you're weak, even if you're broken, creates a different kind of strength. He taught that humans can survive anything if they believe they're needed. Your will doesn't come back because life gets easier. It comes back when something, or someone, matters enough to awaken you. For Frankl, the key was always outside the self, in a mission, a responsibility, a love that pulls you forward when nothing else can. Marcus Aurelius, however, didn't rely on meaning. He relied on motion. Right action, right now, that was his entire philosophy. He believed you don't need to feel it to do it. You just need to begin. Clean your space. Answer the message. Return to what you control. The Stoic doesn't wait for motivation. He builds momentum through habit. Marcus would say, choose not to be harmed, Aurelius, and you won't be. It's not denial, it's discipline. You reteach the soul to move, not through feeling, but through structure. So while Frankl would say, reconnect with your deepest why, Marcus would say, start with what's in front of you. Both are paths back to movement, one emotional, one rational. But both reject the lie that you must feel strong to begin again. They know that some of the greatest acts begin in weakness and become sacred because of it. The beauty of their convergence is this. You don't have to wait for some grand revival. You just need to either find a reason worth trying or create a rhythm that makes trying possible. You don't need hope. You need orientation. So if your will is broken, let this be your starting place. Not a leap, a step, a breath, a decision to try. Not because you feel ready, but because you still exist. And as long as you exist, you are not finished yet. You don't need to feel ready to move forward. You just need to move. That's what both Frankl and Marcus knew. The will to try isn't something that magically returns. It's something that gets rebuilt, piece by piece, step by step. And the first step isn't heroic. It's small, insignificant to the world maybe, but monumental to your soul. Because when you've stopped believing in your own ability to keep going, even standing up is an act of rebellion. Frankl would tell you this: don't search for strength, search for meaning. What in your life still whispers, even faintly, I need you? Who would suffer if you disappeared? What would go unfinished? The answers may not be dramatic, but they are sacred. A promise you made, a child who watches you, a dream that hasn't died. Meaning is what turns trying into purpose, and purpose is what turns pain into fuel. Marcus would offer you a mirror. Look at your thoughts, your fears, your paralysis, and strip away everything that's not in your control. Then ask, what action, however small, is mine to do today? The answer might not change the world, but it will change you. And that's enough. Trying again isn't about restarting a grand vision. It's about returning to alignment with what is right, what is simple, what is yours. Together they offer a path that doesn't demand emotion, just intention. Frankl gives you a why. Marcus gives you a how. You don't have to choose one. You can walk with both. Let love guide you, let clarity hold you up. Let your soul rediscover its own voice, and let your hands respond even when your heart still hesitates. Because the truth is, no one will ever hand you back your will. No one will carry you into tomorrow. But you can carry yourself. Not perfectly, not easily, but honestly. Trying again is not about pretending to be okay. It's about refusing to disappear. So let this be your moment, not of inspiration, but of return. To yourself, to your values, to your fight. You are not beyond restoration. You are not beyond becoming. The fact that you're still here means you are still becoming something. And that, even now, is worth trying for. When you've lost the will to try, it doesn't mean you're weak. It means you've been carrying more than anyone knows. Viktor Frankl reminds you that trying becomes sacred when it's tied to meaning. Marcus Aurelius reminds you that right action is still right, even when you don't feel like doing it. One says, find what matters enough to rise for. The other says, rise anyway. So if all you can do today is breathe, breathe with intention. If all you can do is take one step, let it be yours again. If this video helped you find the courage to keep going, subscribe to Purpose Through Pain. Here, we explore how to rise not from comfort, but from clarity, from purpose. Comment. Below, do you need Frankl's fire or Marcus's structure right now? Share this with someone who's quietly given up. They may need this message more than they'll ever say.